For most of my life, I have prided myself on being a chameleon. I could go into any room, any situation, and morph into the person that group of people needed me to be. And while that did help me make friends, it also led me to make decisions that I'm honestly not proud of now, that aren't true to who I am as a person. And I think it's really important to hold fast. Like now at this age, I'm really working to be true to my values and who I am. And why am I telling you this? Well, when I started my YouTube channel, I once again got into that mind frame of trying to fit in. I mean, you're kind of told you're supposed to fit into a niche, be a certain type of content. And so when I thought about making this content, I went and I looked around and looked at other channels, looked at what other people were doing. And that is what led me to call our place a homestead. So if you've seen some of my previous videos, you know I referred to myself as a homesteader and our home as a homestead. And that didn't really sit right with me. So I do live on a beautiful piece of rural property in nature. We have a lot of animals and I have a garden, and we are doing some of the homesteady type things, you know, like I love making sourdough, and I prioritize raising our own food when possible. But there's other things about a homestead that didn't really sit right with me, that I don't feel like is totally accurate to who we are. So I'm not going to be calling our place a homestead anymore. And today I just kind of wanted to dive a little deeper into kind of more about the word homestead and why I'm not going to use it anymore, and then also what are we going to call our place. Also, I'm doing a tiny bit of a rebranding of my channel in general, different kind of content, so I'll talk about that as well at the end. If you hear any kind of like grunts in the background, it is my daughter. She is walking over in the grass close to me. You might see her at some point if she makes it all the way here. By the way, if you're new here, I am Abby Rose. I live with my husband and our daughter. I am just trying to grow myself as a person, a mother, a wife, a steward of our beautiful place and animals and plants that we have been given the responsibility to care for. And I am growing every day in what I know and how to do those things. And I just want to help share that information with you, what I'm learning in all areas of life. So let's get started on why I decided to call it a homestead. I kind of already alluded to it. It really was because that's just what everyone else was doing. So the technical definition of a homestead is just a house and the surrounding outbuildings. So really anything can be a homestead. Yeah, so many things could fall under that phrase. Originally, the word homestead you hear about it the most when you think about the Homestead Act in the late 1900s. I think it was like 1880s or something that Abraham Lincoln signed into place. I did a little research before this video. Not enough to tell you the exact dates, and if I got that date wrong, feel free to tell me in the comments. Anyway, the Homestead Act allowed settlers to go and claim land out west as long as they built up a place and had animals. And there is some issues with that. If you haven't read Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, that's a really great book about the history of indigenous communities, and you learn a lot about our unhonored treaties that the U.S. government made with indigenous communities and kind of really the stealing of land. So that right there is an issue I have with the word homestead. But I'm not just trying to be politically correct. I'm honestly just trying to be correct in my use of what we call our place. So even today, when you think about what people are using the word homestead for, I mean, there is such a wide gap. There's the backyard homestead where there's people that live in the middle of the city and have all the modern conveniences, but also raise a garden and maybe have some chickens. They're calling that a homestead. Then there's the people that have decided to go completely off grid, you know, have their own wells and solar and totally are doing it all themselves, raising all their own food. They call that a homestead. So there really is so many uses for the word homestead. I think though in general the word is supposed to elicit a thought of trying to separate from the modern way of life, particularly in how we're taking care of ourselves. So, you know, if you are trying to raise more of your own food and make more of your own things, then you might call that a homestead mentality. And, you know, if you want to use the word homestead, go for it. I didn't want to because I kind of mentioned, I touched on it a second ago with the history of the word. And also just growing up, we lived on a place that was homesteady as it comes. We literally went to the store maybe once a month for only the really basic staples. We grew so much of our own food and we had our own animal produce, milk, eggs, meat from our own animals, but we never called that a homestead. I never had heard of that as a homestead. What we called homestead was when we went hiking in the woods and we found this old abandoned like rock wall and foundation of a house. It was like, oh, that was from an old homestead. So homesteads kind of have that idea of striking it out on your own, and I think I just sounded really country when I said that. Oh well. Okay. It has the idea of going out on your own, away from the rest of civilization and really doing things yourself. And truthfully, Dannon and I, we're doing a lot of things ourselves, but that is not our mentality. He has a corporate job. We are so thankful for his job. It really supports a lot of the quick growth that we've been able to do on our place. We love modern conveniences. I love this camera I'm using that was charged with electricity that we got from the power grid. I do want solar panels eventually, by the way, but still, we did not strike it out on our own. We do live pretty rurally, but the nearest store is a 10-minute drive from us. So that's nothing compared to the historical homesteaders. So I don't think it's really accurate to call ourselves homesteaders because we aren't living that rough life of someone striking it out on their own. Also, I think there are some creators that use the word homesteader that have ideologies that don't totally align with mine, and I'm not going to probably get into all of those because I might already have made some people uncomfortable with this video, which I really do not. I don't honestly like voicing opinions because I don't like making people uncomfortable, but I also think it's important to share what I'm learning, and sometimes that involves opinions, which take them or leave them. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. Oh yes, I don't honestly agree with everything that falls under the label of a homestead. Like, we're not preppers. I do think there's importance in being prepared, but I don't spend a lot of my time thinking the sky is falling. And so things like that fall into the homestead bucket. And that is the problem with labels, which is really what I wanted to get to today. There's so many labels, just have so many things that attach to them that I honestly don't like them. Like, I don't like the label of calling myself a homesteader because I feel like that there's so many different expectations that come with that label. Of course, in the content creation world, keywords are important, so it's hard not to have a label, but I don't want to be defined into a certain group. So not calling ourselves homesteaders anymore. What should we call ourselves? Well, farm is the most obvious it's the most obvious thing. So maybe we live on a farm. Growing up, that's what we called our place, was a farm. That's what people locally call their places. Like, I don't think I've heard a single person locally around us who maybe has a garden and animal call their place a homestead. It's totally an online thing. They all call them farms. The problem I have with the word farm is it also is not really descriptive. You could have some land and some animals, or you could have that really mass monoculture, one crop on thousands of acres. Both of those things are called a farm, and so that doesn't totally fit. Or what I mean is, yes, we fit into the category of farm, but it doesn't show how we're trying to not use pesticides and have a more self-sufficient, small-scale farm. So that's, I think, an issue I have with the word farm. Ranch. We could, I guess, be a ranch. We did recently start running cattle for Dannon's uncle. So we have 65 head on our place right now. And I think that might be enough. And we might have enough land to call it a ranch. But again, there are some things that are thought about when you think of a ranch that don't totally fit. Fun fact, actually, for tax purposes, our place is called the Rustic Rose Ranch. So in a way, we do claim it to be a ranch. Really, the reason we did that is because his parents right up the road called their place Mustang Rose Ranch, and so we kind of copied them. His dad was like, "Oh, are you going to pay me for that trademarked name?" But anyway, so, but the ranch, I think a lot of people imagine when you think of a ranch, you think of cowboys out west, thousands of acres. And that's also not totally what our place is. We have 80 acres. Half of that is forest that we don't use other than for just our enjoyment and for hunting season. Dannon uses it some, and his family does as well. But, we don't have a whole lot of pasture land, so I don't know if we're big enough to be qualified as a ranch. There will be times I probably call our place a farm or even a ranch, depending on my mood or what I'm thinking. But really, what I'm gonna mostly stick to is I'm just gonna call it our place. This is just our place. It's our place in the world. It's just a place. It's a place in nature. It's a place with animals. It's a place with plants, and there's just not one little label that we fit into. So I think that it's okay to not to fit into the perfect bubble with other people that might be living a similar life. And I'm gonna try to be a little bit more bold about kind of describing who we are, because I don't think there's a point to creating content if I'm not giving a more honest look at the type of people we are, and therefore the type of people that are living this type of life. Am I off my soapbox yet? Is there anything else I want to talk about? Oh, real quick. This video is kind of going to be a start of a new trend of videos I'm going to do, which are videos that I'm just going to talk about more ideas, things that I learned from our life in nature, things that I've heard on podcasts that kind of relate to life and what we're doing. So I did a lot of DIY videos. Again, it was mostly because that is just what kind of seems to be the norm in this space. I didn't mind doing DIY videos. Issues with those: I am a mother of a toddler, and I'm taking care of a bunch of animals and plants, and we're growing really fast. And DIY or how-to videos require so much editing. So much editing is one of the big reasons I'm not doing it. Another reason is I don't know if we necessarily are doing it the best way. Like, my garden beds are a great example. I didn't end up doing a how-to video on how we made those because we made a lot of mistakes, and there's some really good videos that already exist out there on how to build a good garden bed that you can watch. And so there's some things that we're doing and we're learning along the way that I don't know if it's necessarily the greatest to share. That's why I think my expertise lies the most in just growing new ideas, just new things to think about, new ways of looking at life. Maybe I'll probably show you some of the things we're doing along the way. But yeah, I just wanted to let you know that the content on this channel is going to change just a little bit. You know, if you were here for the DIY type projects, if you were here for the homestead content, you know, it's not going to totally change because there was nothing in those videos that was a lie. Like, just because I don't want to use the word homestead anymore doesn't mean that my video about why we want to homestead isn't accurate. All of those things I said were true. I just think that they were only scratching the surface, and I'd like to go a little bit deeper with y'all. So if you've stuck around this far, thank you so much. Let me know what you're calling your place, what you think of those different terms, and yeah, you know, if you think I'm just overthinking it, you're welcome to tell me in the comments. One thing I'm trying to embrace is comments that don't agree, you know, because it's okay to not agree with each other. We can disagree nicely, hopefully, but we can disagree. Anyway, subscribe if you if you stick around this long, and obviously if you stuck around this long, you didn't totally get annoyed by me. So maybe subscribe and stick around for more content.